Today, I'm going to be painting up two classic Gothic dark elf beauties. Join me in the old world. Oh, hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome to Hobby Night. So, today, we're going back to the old world, but we're not going to be dealing with either the Bretonnians or the Tomb Kings. No. We're going with something much spicier, something closer to Slaanesh, and that is some dark elf models. Now, I found in my collection an old Morathi on foot in metal, as well as a classic Witch Elf in metal. And I thought it'd be fun to paint these two ladies up, attempt to do some beautiful Gothic flesh tones, and just have some fun with Slaanesh. So without further ado, let's get to the painting. In order to prep both models for paint, I wanted to go with my classic pre-shade method. This is going to start with a medium gray tone because I like to work with contrast colors, and I find that black ends up being a little bit too dark, which is why we go with a nice medium gray. Now we're going to enhance some of those shadows though with a little bit of a dark purple wash. Now the reason I'm using a dark purple wash is because I want to use a lot of purples in this particular color palette, and I figured this would give me a nice foundation for those shadows. Now we're going to move on to some highlights, and this is where we're going to be a little bit different than normal. We're going to start with a medium pink tone. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I want these ladies to have very pale Gothic flesh tones, but I still want them to look living and not undead, and I was concerned about how I might be able to achieve that. So I figured with a nice warm pink undertone, I'd help get that living appearance without going overboard with it. I'm really excited with how this is going to turn out, and I hope it works as well as I'm planning it for. And now we can move on to the staff. This is the only portion of Morathi where we're going to go with a more classic pre-shade, sticking with just the black, the purple wash, and then pure white as our highlights. I really wanted to go with that classic bleach blonde look, and I think this is going to help me achieve that. Hey guys, just jumping into the video to remind you to hit that subscribe button and bell icon for notifications so you never miss future content on the channel. And if you're into the spicier side of the hobby, you can find a link to my Only Fanatics down in the link tree below in the description. Now, let's go ahead and get back to the video. Remember how I said I wanted to use a lot of purples in this particular color palette? Well, we're going to start using them right now on all of their clothes. We're going to start with Morathi, and for her robes, we're going to go with a very deep purple color tone that almost looks black. Then for the raised decorative pieces on her robe, we're going to go with Leviathan purple, a slightly less dark but still very vivid deep purple color tone to really accent the robe. I think this works perfectly, and I think Slaanesh would be very pleased. Now for her skirt, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to go with Magos purple. This is a little bit more of a pinky purple color tone, and I think it complements our pre-shade really nicely. We're going to use this exact same Magos purple color tone on our Witch Elf. You see, I didn't want to use any of the deeper, cooler purple color tones because I figured that was more Slaanesh's thing, where Khaine might like a little bit more red in his purples, thus the more pinky purple color tone of Magos purple on our Witch Elf. Now, I'm pretty happy with how these are looking, but I really want to push these models a bit further, so we're going to mix a bit of opaque white paint in with each of the three colors we just used and highlight the appropriate areas with those mixed in colors. This actually works really well, and I have been hesitant to mix opaque colors with contrast paint, but I find that they blend really nicely, and you can get some very beautiful, almost pastel color tones out of them, which I'm going to be exploring a lot more in the future. We're done with all the purples, so let's go ahead and move on to some metallics and take care of all that delightful armor that they're wearing. For our Witch Elf, we're going to go with gold. I think this just speaks to Khaine a bit more. It's going to complement the Magos purple that we use predominantly on her outfit, and I really like the look of her. She is delightful and very shiny. Don't worry, we'll take care of that a little bit. Now for Morathi, we are going to still be using a little bit of gold on her, but it's going to be a lot less. Specifically, I want to use it in the filigree of her crown as well as on a couple of the jewelry pieces she has on her fingers. Then for her bodice, we're going to go with something that I think Slaanesh will approve of much more. A deep, dark silver color tone. We're going to coat everything that we haven't painted already in metallic that should be metal in this color tone, and I absolutely love the way she's coming together. I think this silver really complements with those cool purple color tones that we use predominantly on her robes. But we have a little bit more work to do on all of these pieces. The next step is to apply a Nuln Oil wash over all the metallics we just painted, whether it's silver or gold. Once that has dried, we're gonna come back in and do some highlighting because we've been doing highlighting on everything recently, and I've really been enjoying it. For the golds, we're gonna come in with a mix of silver and gold and apply this as a nice highlight color to most of the rivets that are raised up on the Witch Elf's outfit. Morathi's not gonna get so much of the gold highlight because I really like the way the crown is already appearing. However, she is going to get a lovely silver highlight. This silver highlight is going to be a bright filigree silver, and I really enjoy the way it emphasizes all of those curly cues around her boobs. They just look amazing, and I want them to stand out. They're a really beautiful detail, and I just had to make them stand out, and this does it beautifully. Now, all these ladies have a couple of areas for gems, and I'm going to achieve that in a very specific way. We're going to use Spirit Stone Red, which is a unique color from Citadel that's glossy and dries almost gem-like. And I think it's gonna be perfect for the crown and any of the details on the Witch Elf where she has some like gems on her belt. This dries beautifully, and now we can move on to the rest of the model. Before we move on to the most challenging section, which is painting their flesh tone, let's go ahead and take care of their hair and a couple minor details on their outfits with a little bit of black paint. This is specifically going to be going on Morathi's boots, the Witch Elf's boots, that lovely vine that runs up her thigh, which I really like. I thought about making it green, but decided to go with black because I felt it just fit the more goth theme that I was going for this particular paint scheme. And I really am glad that I chose to do it that way. We're also going to use the same black color tone on both Morathi's hair, which I love the way that it looks after this is done because of that beautiful pre-shade that we did, which is specifically why I like to do this pre-shade method. But we're also going to use the same color tone on the severed head that the Witch Elf is carrying. I just thought it would be nice. I don't really want him to stand out super well, so I thought the darker hair would kind of help him blend in. Now, for the Witch Elf herself, I debated what I wanted to do here for her hair. At first, I thought about maybe trying to go with a silvery white color tone because I do know that often Witch Elves have a sort of pale silvery white hair, a la my favorite anime characters. However, I really didn't like that idea, and I thought it might conflict with the pinky color tones that I use in my pre-shade. And I wasn't sure it was going to work super well and not just look sort of old gray and not silver gray. So I instead was looking online and I saw that some people had done them up as brunettes. And I was like, perfect. I haven't played with too many brown paint color tones. All of the warm color tones that I've played on with on her outfit and her armor will complement this brown color in her hair. So that's what we're going with. I love the way that this ends up looking, and I'm so happy that I did it. All right, it is time to work on all that beautiful, terrifying flesh tone. But I think this is where my pre-shade is really gonna come in and shine. Now, what I'm going to do here is a lot of back and forth of glazing on some lighter color tones, pulling back in some pinks, mixing them up, and just blending until I'm satisfied. But the process is pretty straightforward. The glaze that I start with is a light pallid witch flesh, which I think just works perfectly if you're going for either an undead color tone or a nice goth look on your fancy dark elf ladies. And we use this color basically until I feel like I'm blending it in too much to my shadows, which is where I pull that pink color tone that I use in my pre-shade back out, blend that to make it look more like shadow-like. And I really actually like the effect of this. Their faces, especially, I thought I did a pretty decent job on, even though the back and forth of blending and mixing and blending and mixing and just correcting things as I felt I need to, did take quite a bit of time. Once I'm satisfied with the flesh, we can move on to their eyes. And for this, I have a little bit of a cheat for you. You still maybe want to white the eyes the same way that you would normally with a brush, but I'd recommend dotting the eyes and giving them pupils with a micron. This is a nice archival, waterproof felt tipped pen that you can get from any art supply store or just buy online, and it works great for helping you dot the eyes. It gives you so much more control, or at least it gives me a lot more control than using a brush, and I really like doing it. I did this on all three of the models, and I think their eyes look pretty gosh darn good. The last thing I want to take care of on their faces are those luscious lips. For this, I used a little bit of a light red glaze, specifically Caribou Crimson, which is a nice shade, but I mixed in a little bit of opaque white to it just to give it a little bit of a softer vibe. And again, I really like this effect. I did have one instance where I kind of got a little bit of clown face on one of the models, but it's okay. I just went back in with my skin tone and reblended things until I was satisfied, and now I have two gorgeous looking dark elf faces. You might remember that we have a corpse that the witch elf is carrying. Well, for his flesh, I want to do something a bit different and make it look a little bit more stark in comparison to the soft flesh of our ladies. So for this, we're going to go with a wash of a blue color tone over them. This will help make him still look dead, but distinctly different from the sort of undead white color tone of our witch elf. Then we're gonna come back in with that same pallid witch flesh color tone and apply that as a highlight over his face, but in a much more stark way. Again, I really want to emphasize the fact that he is a rotting corpse and should not be looking fleshy and soft anymore as he is decaying. Then we're going to come in with a little bit of red, dot his severed neck with that as the blood is draining out of him. And then the last thing that we need to take care of is Morathi's staff. As I mentioned, I wanted this to be a more bleached bone effect on the staff, and while I think I've achieved that pretty gosh darn well already with just my pre-shade, I want to emphasize the whites a little bit, so we're going to come in with a nice white glaze and just pull out some details until I'm satisfied. Then the last thing to take care of is basing them, and I'm going to go with AK's Dark Earth. I love this texture paint. I've really gotten into AK's diorama paints, and I think they are fantastic to work with. So I applied this to both their bases, did a light dry brush of them, and then applied a couple of purple flowers as a tufting option to just finish off the model. And now we can look at the final thing. And there we have it, two wonderful looking dark elf ladies. I'm actually very, very pleased with how these women turned out. Normally, I don't paint a lot of flesh tones. I tend to avoid it because it scares me. But with my pre-shade method, with the pink undertone, honestly, I think it worked really, really well. And I might even try that on some other more just normal human flesh tones, because I think it might help give me a little bit of a better emphasis and help me play with some other color tones as well when it comes to flesh. I've just really been enjoying exploring this, and I hope you enjoyed watching this particular episode of Hobby Night with our Dark Elf tutorial. I've been loving everybody being super hyped for the old world because the Bretonnians and Tomb Kings are out, even though I haven't been able to get my copy yet. Curse you, my game store, please, please. I hope it gets shipped to you soon. I want it, but that's okay. That's okay. It gave me an opportunity to paint these dark elves, Morathi specifically, who honestly is the very first character I ever played in Total War Warhammer 2. So she has actually a very lovely history with me, and it was awesome to be able to do her up and see what I could actually accomplish with my new just enthusiasm for trying to go the extra mile and make my models beyond battle ready. The other really cool thing, and I'll be sharing these on my social media and the community tab later on, is I do have, and it wasn't painted by me, but I do want to compare it still, a Morathi that is on her Pegasus. And I just want to see what the two faces look like and see if my slightly more modern techniques are better or any different from what was used previously by this other person who painted it a long time ago. I'm really excited to do these comparisons. I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And before I head out, I do want to give a final thank you to not only my patrons, but also YouTube members for helping support the channel and make it so content like this can continue to happen. Without your guys' support, we just would not be doing this. So thank you very, very much. I have been Angela, and I hope you have a wonderful hobby night.